Hello everyone and welcome to a sneak peek, a preview, and a video walkthrough of the Zweihander starter set, now on Kickstarter, a fantasy horror tabletop role-playing game. I am them Dave, or So Dave, a tabletop GM for Zweihander on many occasions, and also the Electric Dice podcast. Very excited to be walking you through this, so let's get right into it. So what we're looking at today is the player's guide specifically. This is a slimmed down version of the game. It's also player facing. When you back the Kickstarter, you're going to get 2 books. You're going to get both the player's guide and the GM's information. We'll double back and remember exactly what that's called. Today, we're only going through the player's guide because more people are going to be playing than running the game. Additionally, there's a quick start adventure available in the GM's half of the game, and we don't want to spoil any of that. What we're looking at here, we're going to hit just the high notes. This is stuff that I'm sure will be available. Usually they sort of send out a couple like still images, and this is sort of just welcoming you to Zweihander, sort of getting a feel for what it is we're going to be playing. Low fantasy and high stakes. Monsters are the only danger found in this game. People are too. A village of peasants can readily drag a knight off their horse and beat them to a bloody pulp. Right? Superstition and stratification. Superstition reigns supreme. People's perceptions of the supernatural world are just as crucial as the diseases that ravage the countryside. But the 3 social classes dominate traditional human society and are compelling a ever-present fear of the unknown. Magic and heresy, right? So there's there's a lot of this or this versus this problem, and also this problem too that you're starting to see. Magic and heresy, conflict and entropy, grim and perilous. Boom, we got it in there. Okay. The other thing that you need to understand that's happening constantly through your game is corruption. Corruption exists as something between a mimetic idea and an actual enervating energy. It spreads through selfish or misguided decisions and exposure to supernatural phenomena, right? So the point here is that your character, you will suffer for choices. In a lot of cases, all choices, but certainly bad ones, selfish ones, self-centered ones, misguided ones, and any choice that brings you further to, or rather closer to evil, right, or chaotic or chaos. You're going to see that manifest with your character. This is very much the last being standing in that way, right? It misleads priests to false idols, turning even-handed rulers into unbridled despots. Corruption's greatest pleasure, however, is when it can steer an adventurer towards their worst, ignoble, vile self. Now, here's something, once again, that we've already addressed earlier while going through this book. There's a free safety tool called Entreat the Darkness. It's available through Drive-Thru RPG. Having used it myself while streaming on the Zweihander official channel, I can tell you that it is a must. You absolutely need to be bringing safety tools to your player group. It does not matter if these are people you've been playing with for a very long time. Point is that not checking in, not building safety tools, making assumptions, trusting that, oh, we've been friends for a long time, we'll all be okay. That's not how that works. Conversations can quickly veer off topic, right? Or stumble into not only things that have always troubled people, maybe they haven't felt comfortable saying, but also there can be new traumas that are created by living in this world. You don't know what's going to upset you. And while if you are a well-established group of friends, you will probably make it out of there, why would you not have something keeping you safe? I can vouch for having used the Entreat the Darkness tools and found them to be very helpful. Along that same vein, right, these are things that the designers, specifically Daniel Fox, are putting in very early to make very clear. This game does not endorse discrimination of any kind, right? It's trying to get you to understand there are times where your characters will encounter beings who are doing terrible things. The adventure, right? The point of the game should be rising above that, right? And fighting against that sort of thing. We're sort of reading through it's a bit of a preamble to try and get you in the headspace of what it is you're going to be dealing with and what you're looking at. Reading through the player's guide, we'll use the singular they and its inflected forms, them or their, for an indeterminate gender. Bold terms are relevant to gameplay, or chapter references, italics, or callouts that don't need to be committed to memory. Black boxes indicate tips for the game master. Sepia are for everyone to read. and gray boxes are examples of gameplay. Something that you're going to see, especially if you're a returning player, the differences between this new starter set and some of the more established books that have been out there for Zweihander for a while. And it's neat because when I scrolled through this really quickly, it's funny that this didn't register, this little marginalia that's sitting here. Let me make sure. Yeah, I got the page split right. It's funny because the older books have so much of it, and it's a quirk, and it's a lot of fun to look at. And I'm guilty of liking like super crunchy games with lots of little fiddly bits and tables and art and everything else. But it was interesting kind of when I put the two of them up next to each other, just how clean and clear the new player's guide is for the starter set. It's less visually distracting. Not only have they really done their work to sort of, right, as we just saw, the call outs of the different, of the bold, of the italics, the different boxes and everything. You're seeing a lot of information like design and theory go into how to explain how this game works. But also visually, the pages are less distracting. I know that they've been working on a font, I believe specifically for helping with like dyslexics readers and everything, to make sure that it does not work to try and read through the book so you know how to play. And, you know, the added benefit is when you do need to dig into the book for rules, you have these options. One more added little bit here before we start breaking in. I do like that this is called out. Zweihander awaits you. The fate of your grim and perilous adventure hangs in the balance. Can't wait to hear how it turns out. Please share your experiences on the Discord at zweihander.game. Once again, can vouch for having been in the Discord for probably 2 years now, maybe a little longer. Really welcoming, really great community. They have a bunch of like DIYers in there for people who are making their own games, as well as adding things to like the Zweihander library, and then some of the associated works. I've never had any issue asking for rules clarification, never had any trouble asking for ideas for NPCs, right, for all sorts of things to go along with the game, which is generally a really great group of people. So it is worth checking out. So I'm definitely a fan of this golden rule. It's interesting because when we think of like a rule 1 or a rule 0, typically it's, hey, whatever the game master, whoever's running the game, says goes. I think that was probably a really good rule for a very long time. I think in some cases it's probably still a really good rule. I don't know that it suits every table though. There's a lot of tables that are kind of getting constructed out there for games where everyone is more interested in being on a level playing field and then putting the same effort and energy in towards driving the game, the story, and the plot forwards. So this is kind of an interesting little tweak where it says, hey, the most important rule is keep the game moving forwards. Specific is not necessarily the most important, right? Look it up later. If it gets in the way, work together. Just point here is to make sure that everyone's having fun and everyone agrees. Not necessarily to always be 100% by the letter of the book, especially if everyone at the table has a more interesting idea that would work. As we go through how gameplay works, right, this does a really good job. I myself am very guilty of sort of throwing around terms and abbreviations for tabletop games like TTRPG or Tatterpig, if you will. Whenever you and any number of friends sit down to play Zweihander, it's called a session. A session tends to last 1 to 3 hours. You'll need anywhere from 2 to 8 players, 2 to 8 friends. You might not be friends, you could just be players. But it can also be played 1-to-1. It's a cool call out. I like that. I'm a fan of doing that. Some of my greatest games have been just myself and one other player to really dial in and focus on something specific. Be curious to see. I believe I remembered reading something about a Strider mode. I'd be curious to kind of see the rules for that. Combat in particular is something that really struggles when the game is kind of naturally balanced for, right, as this suggests, when you and any number of friends, but 2 to 8, right? That's a wide range. There's a lot of differences between that 2 and that 8, even 5 to 8. Anyway, when you play a session, you go on an adventure. It's a grim tale driven by medieval mystery, perilous situations, and supernatural horror that only your player character or PC can resolve. An adventure can take anywhere from 3 or more sessions to complete. So the point there is that just kind of walking down the street, buying some rope, and then going home is probably not an adventure. unless the game master certainly has a very nefarious shopkeeper for you. A series of interconnected adventures make up a campaign. It's good getting these terms right out of the way early. For a lot of people, don't need this kind of stuff, but again, the point of a starter set is to bring new people into the game and attempt to move people who have been maybe playing one other game for a really long time into a new game and do it in a friendly way. So this is cool. Once again, just dials down further. Adventures are broken into scenes. The scene might be just going down the street buying the rope, right? You'll interact with people who need your help, right, or want your money. In this case, engage in deadly chases, explore the wilderness, face down horrors, both monstrous and human. Again, liking that that's called out. There are some games that have been about like the adventure is only outside of town. I think something that Zweihander does really well is it can present humans as the monsters, and their political machinations, right, or their corruption. A scene uses a free-flowing back and forth form of storytelling called narrative time. Interesting. I don't actually think I've heard it called that before. So it says interactions within the campaign world can transpire over hours, days, weeks. The in-game time moves in flux with the story's needs. Yeah. So that's just kind of codifying something that a lot of people will do as they're playing game, right? Understanding, right, that we may have to skip ahead a little bit. The thing that I like about this, something that I think more games could embrace, so I'm really happy that it says here, other times fast forwarded or even backwards as needed. Sometimes you need to go back and clarify something. Sometimes there might be two different assumptions of what took place in a situation, and not even anything necessarily bad. So it's cool that it says, hey, you might have to go back and double check and be sure. So I like that a lot. Every scene will include one or more challenges as guided by a storyteller, rules referee, called the game master or GM. Again, fairly straightforward, right? If you want to buy the rope and, haggling with the rope merchant isn't quite working out for you, now we have a conflict. Once again, we're going to hit a lot of these, as we sort of work through the book. This is just clarifying, right, that the Game Master's Secrets book, which I should have remembered the name of earlier and forgot, is for the Game Master. It's for the Game Master to read alone. Now, I would imagine anyone who's interested in running the game, read the book, right? That you're going to want it. You're going to want to get into it. I think if you're in an established group, especially if you're running, or rather your Game Master is running the starter adventure, you want to let your Game Master know, hey, I'm intending to run. I want to get familiar with the rules. I think getting familiar with the rules is probably a good thing. Potentially reading monsters, right, or player stats, NPC stats. Could be something that could be a little contentious, and then obviously don't read the adventure if you're playing through it yourself. We've got a player's book and a GM's book for that reason. Like I was mentioning earlier, I did watch a little bit of this with the Secrets of the Swanzi adventure. So that's the quick starter adventure that comes with this Kickstarter. And then this sort of just gives you some extra things to kind of go into. There's an adventure called A Bitter Harvest that a GM could pick up to continue. The main gauche also has a supplement. There's something about Marie. And then there's an adventure, Eternal Night of Lockwood. So you have a lot of different options to sort of get into. If you prefer running modules and have some of that heavy lifting done for you ahead of time, just kind of read them and plot out things that you like about it and modify them for anything you don't. Doesn't seem to be any changes from the dice. So D percentile system, rolling under is good. Nice specification here of just making sure always treat the 0 as a value of 10. Very good, right? 60 on the 10s, 9 on the units, 69. Nice. Sorry, guys. 60 on the 10s, 0 on the 1s or the units, 60%. So to get 100, double 0 on the 10s and 0 on the 1s, right? The inverse would be a 1, which is double 0 on the 10s, 1 on the 1s unit. So just a 1. Very straightforward. Just good specification, good calling it out. People that are perhaps used to using, I don't know, like a 20-sided die. Maybe there's some games out there that use that. Game also uses a lot of D6s, right? As it calls out, can be called Fury dice or sometimes Chaos dice, depending on the context. Rolling high is good. 6s makes things happen, and typically in a lot of cases they'll also explode, so you get to roll that die again. when you hit a 6, but again, rules later. Got it. Nothing's jumping out at me here. Is a new skill. I'll tip my cards ever so slightly. Actually don't remember warfare, but maybe I just never used it. A lot of different ways to examine skills, right? Like, what are the things the game cares about? Where is it putting most of its energy, right? So something that jumps out really quickly, right? Simple, ranged in melee, martial, ranged in melee. So there you got a distinct split. No change, right? From other editions is not the right word for it, but no change between the starter and the traditional rules. And then you can kind of catch, right? Like, all right, well, besides breaking it really quickly. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't seeing anything else. So interestingly, incantation covers all of the magic you're looking for, right? Whereas, as we pointed out, there's a martial and simple split on both melee and ranged. Also a fan of just, right, skullduggery here, taking care of any of your disarming locks, stealing from people, sleight of hand. I like that as a skill because then you can put energy into it, right? Some sort of resource. Not going to spend forever on this, right? But also a fan of a drive skill. You know, and now we haven't split. Well, I guess we've got handle, animal, and drive. I was going to say we haven't split functionally a horse differently from, you know, perhaps a wagon or a cart or some sort of boat and everything. But well, and maybe we haven't, right? Because this is specifically saying care for and train animals. I'd be interested to seeing what other people would do in a situation like that. Going strictly by what this says, I'd want to read the longer form definition for each skill, but I like the drive. It's a thing, you know what I mean? So that's cool. Really, just to make sure we're kind of going through this effectively. You've got the skill, which you might have ranks in, right, telling you how good you are, or whether if you're trained or not, right, or if it is an advanced skill, which is denoted by the asterisk here, and then you're basing it on something, right? So you see intelligence, brawn, perception, fellowship, agility, right, and then they're sort of repeating, right, combat covering some as well. And so you've got a base chance that's then modified in some way, typically up, but then rolling against that. So something, I think this is the first time we've seen it specified here, as well as we're sort of jumping around. Peril condition track, right? It's found in your profession folio. It may force you to ignore some or all of your skill ranks, right? So something that I think that lends itself to both the horror and the grittiness feel of this game is that being injured really starts to impact you. There are other games where as you take damage, functionally, there's no difference between your capabilities and your experience through the world. So this starts getting like debilitating in that way, right? Which is, on the one hand, it can make like a very tense and frustrating situation, but on the other hand, a very memorable one, as you know, that die roll becomes extremely important. So no changes here, probably just cleaning up not only the page in general for useful as reference, right? Bolding things that are really important. And then pointing out dice matches are critical, right? So this is how you get a critical success or indeed a critical failure, which can be a lot of fun. And then there's different things that matter when that happens, but roll your dupes, right? And matched either under or over your skill test, you're triggering other special effects. Again, no change here, but another thing that makes this system really kind of shine and be super interesting is flipping to succeed or flipping to fail, right? So when you are poised to do something very well, you have the option, but you also have the means to flip to succeed. So you roll your D percentile, right, to generate a number between 1 and 100, and then if perhaps, let's call your skill rank 25, right, you rolled a 91, but you're able to flip to succeed due to some reason, you flip it to a 19, you've succeeded. The inverse is also true. And once again, this is a system where it can be very punishing, but also very memorable, because you tend to remember things like that. You tend to remember your critical successes and also failures. when you flip to fail, you don't have a skill unlocked, and it's in advanced one. It has the asterisk here. You might have a 25, you might have a 55, right? But you roll that 19 and you're on flip to fail. Unfortunately, now you have a 91. It's not a success. Edge cases. This is very specific. I've had this come up, so it's good that it's called out very clearly here, right? Edge cases. You cannot flip the results of a 1 or 100. However, or excuse me, not however. Furthermore, if you ever have both flip to succeed and flip to fail, they simply cancel each other out, which is good. Then you're flipping forever, and then the game crashes and you got to start back at. You get it. Okay, just as another aside, we got to the point in the player's guide. I didn't actually remember fail forward rules. So as I was reading them, I actually thought they were really interesting. But again, we're talking about a very large book with a lot of rules. I've definitely made mistakes. So I wanted to double check before I started going on a tangent about, oh, look, this is kind of cool. I haven't seen this before. I should have. I just didn't. So I pulled up my copy of other Zweihander rules. I know that's you, Daniel. I can tell. I can see right there. I can tell because of some of the pixels and having seen a lot of photos of you in my time. So I'm hoping this photo exists somewhere in the newer book now too. If it doesn't, I'll be disappointed. So yeah, just for context, actually, this doesn't seem to specify. This does not seem to specify which specific version it is. I was just curious. Okay. Ostensibly 2017, maybe. Oh, okay. We'll leave that in the background in case we need it. I just had to put that little bit of art up on the video because I thought it was funny. Made me laugh. In particular, here we've got some nice subtle changes and some nice call outs. So background seems to be about the same. Great art. Race has been replaced with ancestry and ancestral trait. Zweihander's still assuming a humocentric world, and it's the default, but the options for what you can play, right, have changed pretty significantly. Actually went into the other book just to see kind of comparatively significant differences just between determining your race, right? And we've got 5 options onto now ancestry 3, 6, 10 looks like. Oh, probably could have called that just so excellent. Great art as always. Just much more inclusive. I wasn't initially planning on doing too much through each of the ancestries, but I just want to point out this frogadier looking Aslan. I want to play him. That's awesome. Pretty happy with everything. The Awakened little marionette, which is pretty cool, and it kind of looks like a certain berserker dwarf we've seen before, which is exciting. And then we've got some pretty fantastic iterations of dwarves here. Really liking our runic scrawling here and our minor on this end. Very disparate versions of elves, which is really exciting. Sort of pushing people into a new direction. Same thing for the gnomes. There's a lot going on this page, especially over here with the deer skull and the bones. I like the bones. Grendel, really cool. The Satyrine people of dubious nature who straddle the line between being a cult of personality and a force of jackanapes. Jackanapes? I don't think I've ever even said that. You're likely a hedonist par excellence, reveling in vices and rituals to forgotten gods in your old commune called the Wild Hunt. Pretty exciting. Pretty cool. Our halflings, our stoic halflings. Our ogres. Siabra, there it is. Fickle and coldly neutral. I actually don't remember seeing them at all before, as opposed to like the Grendel. So that's interesting. As we start moving through more of the character generation, I just want to point out like how informative, supportive, like really evocative these tables are. So in a lot of situations, you're just buying, or at least I have found myself buying tabletop books just simply for the tables to use, to roll, to generate, to sort of inspire ideas and to fill out, empty rooms and modules and other such things like that. Distinguishing marks, right? So we've got like hair, style, complexion, right? That's fairly straightforward. Distinguishing marks has always been one that's been pretty interesting. Garnered a lot of attention. Same thing with the births and the doomings, and the alignment and corruption. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, right? The distinguishing marks, they're such a catch-all for things that are like people are so excited to have, and then bitter punishments. So let's see. Let's just go ahead and see if we can't generate something for ourselves. I probably should have pulled up just a random number generator, but here we are. We're already deeply involved in the details. So here's the finding. So we got a 32. So what do we end up with? A thin nose. And a 98. Excellent. And unkempt hair. Wow, this is really starting to feel very personal. And then we've got this grinning ne'er-do-well here. Same thing. We'll just keep it riding. So 68 is autumn. So the doomings of autumns, we end up with a 44. So new beginnings herald sudden endings. Isn't that the truth? And last but not least, so the chaos and order alignments, I've always preferred to keep them together, generate ones, keep both of them. I know some people have kind of mixed and matched and rolled twice, but I think that the designers have done very well to sort of knit them together into something. So your chaos, or your order is your chaos alignment taken to like the furthest extreme, and things of that nature. So we ended up with a 67 for this little character we're creating. So we got martyrdom and humility. Interesting. That is a very oh oh no, I read that right. For a moment I jumped down to mayhem. Martyrdom and humility, that's kind of interesting. That's a very honest, earnest, generous sort of character we have with their unkept hair and their thin nose and their sudden, or their new beginnings heralding sudden endings. That may be a bit self-referential. I'll just say the same things about drawbacks too, right? Overall, you're just the game, and really the starter set in general, just kind of streamlines you through creating characters and making it really easy to kind of figure out who it is that your character is, right out of the gate, so you can kind of jump into playing. And then the thing that I've always really liked is sort of having all of these different things and then seeing what kind of emerges in play and what really speaks to you for their behavior, right? So with a 76, getting a lot of middle, we've got a ruptured eardrum, and this character now flips to fail skill tests that rely on hearing, right? So we've got messy hair and kind of always trying to catch what it is that people are saying. We've got a villain afoot, it would seem. This is also kind of neat, and once again, double check to make sure that I wasn't just misremembering anything. So we've got, right near the end, naming your character, getting your starting trappings, which is to say like the tools of your trade. And then this is neat. So we've got one unique memento. So look at your professional folio. Think of one unique memento that your PC carries from their former life. It can be literally anything from a cameo of a loved one, a signet ring, a war medal. The sky's the limit. So I like that. It's kind of like the trinkets sort of idea. But it gives you sort of, the ability to sort of push into that narration and make sure that your character has something that sort of explains them or that they keep with them. As always, I'm a big fan of the book sort of giving you the means to make these decisions on your own. The things that I'm like really interested in, right, are how much is food, how much is it to stay a night at a tavern, right? How much are people spending for things, right, that we're likely to run into, right? How much is it to to smoke? How much is it for the good meal, for the terrible meal, but at least I'm not hungry anymore? I always look to see if it has suggestions for bribes, and then things like, you know, maybe toll booths, right? So this has actually got, yeah, there we go. So we've got tips, which is nice. Spread rumors, so buying people drinks and telling them. There we go. There's the bribe. That's what I was looking for. Bribing doorman, bribing a guard, very handy. It's helpful, so then you're not sort of stuck in the game trying to figure that sort of stuff out for yourselves. Now I've got a basis for comparison, and we're moving along, and players know what to sort of toss out there. Maybe they don't have the means for it, so they're trying to make it by without being able to spend the full gold crown. Just slowly sort of roaming through, first off, good art in general, but then also tables of what the armor is, stats, right? But I really appreciate the illustrations. Again, goal, in my opinion, goal of the starter set is getting a lot of new people that might not have any experience with a tabletop game sort of in the world and well equipped to do so. So there, you know, there's explanations. Probably would have liked everything referenced. I mean, we can probably, you know, if you've been doing this for a minute, you sort of piece together that this is, you know, your padded armor, right? This is your chain shirt. This is your full plate, right? So then you've got some sort of a half plate, and then maybe this is the hide armor, the banded or the studded over here, right? Nice to see a torches a weapon. Same thing with a walking stick. You never know when you're gonna just, this is all we've got. So quite literally just seeing this as I'm reading through, not only do we have the Zweihander, right? So you're more than a two-handed sword, but then if you also wanted to attack someone with the Zweihander revised core rulebook, actually hilarious. Genuinely, truly did not catch that the first time I was scanning through. It's got a bunch of traits. It costs 65 gold crowns, so it's almost 5 times as much, maybe slightly over 5 times as much as the Zweihander. That makes sense in universe. I'm not sure I've seen any rules for a printing press thus far, so, you know, a 400-page book is definitely a formidable weapon in every sense of the word. Once again, as I'm just sort of scrolling through this, I'm appreciating not only the rules, which have been refined, simplified, right? Everything that is not immediately adding to the game has been cut just to make this very quick, a very easy, a very useful book to have on hand at all times, and really just appreciating the art. So now we've got someone using a firearm, and we can see that they have created a kill shot here, so we're going for the style points. So I've chosen to leave a lot of the specifics to combat and healing and damage for a separate video. I think that as I'm doing like a quick walkthrough here, trying to go over some of the basics, some of the things that are really standing out to me. Again, we've seen the starter guide really work as like a very quick reference guide as well. The point of it is to get you in, getting you playing the game, and to remove as much extraneous information as it can and make it very clear and very concise. You still need to take your time reading through all of the combat, right, and getting used to spending action points, right, when to choose to save them for reactions, right, dealing with rest recuperation, dealing with spending or indeed burning fortune points, using actually I'm fairly confident I saw perilous stunts in here somewhere, suffering injuries, sacrificing fate points, and suffering peril, right, as you move up and down the peril track, peril condition track. So there's really no substitute for not going through I mean, what is actually a reasonable, I don't know, maybe 15 pages or so, but to cover everything for combat and healing, right? So we're looking at page 76 here, and then to get into magic, Yeah, that was some of the perilous stunts right there. What do we say, 76? So 20 pages. So a few extra than I was remembering, but that is also including all of the healing, all of the combat, and dealing with your perilous stunts, movement, opportunity actions, right? And then any special actions within a combat round. Very specifically going over the templates, which I like a lot, and how far everything is going, right? Because up until now, haven't seen anything really referencing that super clearly. It seems like you're still very effectively able to use theater of the mind for combat or otherwise, right? Get into a very tactical sort of setup, right? And measuring things. Additionally, I like the call out right here, dispelling effects. I've definitely seen this sort of come up in conversation before, where we've got, you can instantly dispel, which is to say end the effects of your spell at any time except those you critically failed to cast. So I like that a lot, right? Going into any sort of reagents you might use or expend when casting the spell, how long spells are lasting, if concentration is needed, when you can or cannot concentrate. Yeah. As well as the reference of the spell cards, which just so helpful when sitting around at the table, again, as opposed to digging into this book. And it is lean for these exact reasons, right? That we've sort of kitted it out and moved what we can where we can. Not everyone will need these spell cards, right? Well, not everyone needs the spells inside the book, so we've got spell cards to quickly reference them. Just a few more things I wanted to go over as I was reviewing, editing, double checking some of my notes. A few things really jumped out at me. First off, just like how much has been put into like the new weapons and everything. Just very exciting. There's so many different ways to customize your character. There's so many different ways. And really it goes right down the road, because you can hit the drawbacks, right? You can be known for performing a specific perilous stunt, right? You've got all sorts of the ancestral traits that you're working through, as well as having like known for using a specific weapon. I've always really appreciated that the firearms in general, like black powder and everything, is utilized in the game. So that's been really cool. It's like how, so we've gotten refined actions in combat. We've got our new drawbacks. We've got, streamlined weapons, new weapons. Our favorite Zweihander book is actually a weapon, as we discovered as we were reading through everything. A Morgenstern. I actually do not know what a Morgenstern is. I am familiar with a Misery Cord, which is a mercy killer dagger. So I'll have to Google what a Morgenstern is. I tend not to Google things that I on camera, on stream anyway, that I don't know what they are. Can't say I don't Google things I don't know. If you've ever watched any of the Electric Dice's adventures in Zweihander, I'm sure you remember the scene with the royal water. That is a weapon. You'll notice that it says it's acidic, so don't use it to clean out your friend's eyes. That was a lot of fun. That was a memorable moment, but we discussed that before too, where sometimes the most memorable moments are the critical fails that you have. I did confirm the one-on-one rules. I don't have access to them yet, but they exist, so I'm super excited to see that. They are also featured in the it was Secret of the Swanzi, the adventure, the little adventure that comes with this. I remember reading it early on in the book. Something I meant to mention and kind of forgot. Secrets of Swanzi, yeah. Something I meant to mention early on and forgot was I was curious to see if the chase rules had been updated or changed in any way. And that they also appear to have ended up in the adventure. So basically the trick was focusing on layout, right? As we've kind of gone over with the information design, taking sort of like a heavy editing pass to make sure that wherever possible we're being concise, consistent, quick, easy, right? A focus on information design to make this book extremely easy to read, extremely quick to kind of move and sort through. And then the adventures are actually going to teach you a little of some of the more specialized stuff. And then because it's a starter guide, eventually you'll kind of work your way out of it, right? Or for returning players, you already have, you know, our heavy tomes, right, in the back to take care of, to do some of that heavy lifting for creating characters as they advance. So this is really a great resource to have at the table, not only for new players, but also for players that just may be in a situation where they want to double check rules or the GM, right? So you can have both of these starter books kind of right next to you. And then when it comes down to character creation, character leveling, you're sort of opening up the new one. It's very exciting. Really, really looking forward to seeing more, getting into the GM secrets, getting into the adventure. And then just really love this illustration. We have all been there. So 99 pages, not remembering this very cool mask from earlier on. Overall, very, very happy with what I'm seeing here. And this is just the first half of the set of books, right? This is just a player facing book as opposed to the GM secrets. This is quite a steal to get into Zweihander and its morally gray world. It's grim and perilous gaming. It's fantasy horror tabletop role-playing game. Thank you so much.